The Josh McDaniels Colts era, how it all fell apart. Indianapolis, even as the apprehension in the building began to rise, a little more with every passing hour, Chris Ballard never blinked. Way he saw it, there was no reason to. The fact that Josh McDaniels' flight to Indianapolis aboard Jim Irsay's private jet was delayed. At first it was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon, then pushed back to Wednesday morning, didn't worry him. He'd had his new coach lined up for 3 weeks. The verbal agreement was there, the contract agreed to. When the team sought to announce the news on Tuesday morning, Ballard gave the okay. It's a decision he'd come to regret in the hours that ensued. But at that juncture, 37 days into his first coaching search as the Indianapolis Colts general manager, Ballard had never considered the prospect of McDaniels backing out. He was his head coach. Ballard remained very confident. He'd later reveal, Monday night into Tuesday, that the deal was done, though the team made certain to use the wording agreed to terms instead of hired in their release announcing McDaniels was coming to town. Why? The contract had not been signed. You think you've found the right guy, you move forward, Ballard would admit. Meanwhile, the GM's mind was elsewhere. He'd spent part of Tuesday sitting, crying, mourning with one of his players, safety Matthias Farley. Tragedy rocked West 56th Street over the weekend, and the Colts were still processing it. A young linebacker, bursting with energy and ambition, was killed, hit by a suspected drunk driver at 4 a.m. Edwin Jackson was at the Colts facility as recently as Thursday, smiling as always. Suddenly he was gone. Ballard spent his Sunday calling Jackson's family, calling the family of the other man killed in the crash, Jeffrey Monroe, and consoling players. McDaniels was in Minneapolis, calling plays in the Super Bowl. Ballard didn't even watch the game. Not 48 hours later, while he sat in a draft meeting, Ballard's phone buzzed. It was 8 hours after the Colts had announced the terms had been agreed to, 16 hours before they were set to introduce McDaniels at a splashy news conference at Lucas Oil Stadium. They just needed him to board the plane. They just needed him to sign the contract. I have bad news for you, McDaniels began. Ballard answered with a question. I need a yes or no answer, he said. Are you in or are you out? McDaniels, the Patriots' longtime offensive coordinator, had arrived at One Patriot Place Tuesday morning intent on cleaning out his office and informing his bosses, that it'd be head coach Bill Belichick and owner Robert Kraft, that he was leaving for Indianapolis. Then, over the course of several hours, while Ballard met with grieving players, planned for the draft and the Colts sent out word that Josh McDaniels was, indeed, their new head coach, Josh McDaniels decided he wasn't going to be their new head coach. It was a stunning U-turn, one that would leave Ballard and the Colts in nearly unprecedented NFL territory. 3 assistants had signed contracts to work under McDaniels and were already in the building. The conversation went back and forth. Eventually, McDaniels gave Ballard his answer. I'm out, he said. The GM kept his response succinct. Inside, he fumed. He had no interest in the conversation dragging on. We're gonna move forward, then, Ballard told McDaniels. Best of luck. Asked later if he tried to persuade McDaniels to reconsider, to not renege on his word, Ballard demurred. I didn't want the explanation, he'd say. He never wanted a coach he had to beg to come to Indianapolis. He wanted a coach who'd beg him to come to Indianapolis. There was no persuasion, Ballard said. Let me make this clear, I want and we want as an organization a head coach that wants to be all in. I want somebody that's 100% committed to partnering with us and getting that work done. McDaniels wasn't. Ballard processed it. He called his owner, Jim Irsay, and informed him the coaching search would have to start anew, 5 weeks after the regular season ended, several since the top candidates were scooped up. There's behind the 8 ball, then there's the Indianapolis Colts at the current moment. Irsay, no doubt, fumed as well. There's no doubt he's competitive, was about all Ballard would reveal of his conversation with his boss. He went on, We're fortunate, this city is fortunate, to have him as an owner. I couldn't imagine working anywhere else and for a better man who stands for the right things and wants to win, unequivocally wants to win. Some players felt jilted. We got snaked, one said Wednesday. So, some 8 hours after he'd been ditched at the altar by the first head coach he's ever tried to hire, Ballard spun it forward. Just because you're the first choice doesn't mean you're the right choice, he proclaimed. Tuesday night's events made that clear. Ballard had pushed his chips into the middle of the pile, betting big on Josh McDaniels, and busted out. A day later he rightly dished some needed perspective. The Colts lost a head coach. Edwin Jackson's family lost a son, a brother. Across 19 minutes at Wednesday's news conference, Ballard was diplomatic one moment, stirring the next, humbled throughout. In what could very well prove a defining moment of his tenure in this city, he let it be known that Josh McDaniels spurning his franchise at the 11th hour would not derail where this team is headed. Time will tell on that. But be clear, Ballard will not forget this. Does he feel betrayed? No, Ballard said tactfully. People make decisions. People tell people no every day. That's his prerogative and that's his choice. And he chose not to be an Indianapolis Colt. That's okay. We'll move forward. They already are. Ballard's second coaching search in a month commenced late Tuesday night, this time with an added understanding. The old enemy is now the new enemy. The rivalry is back on, he said, clenching his notes, striding out of the room, ticked off, done with Josh McDaniels and the New England Patriots. Call Star reporters at Kiefer at 317-444-6134 and follow him on Twitter, at @Skiefer. More, Doyle, Colts can survive without Josh McDaniels but not without QB Andrew Luck. The Colts can't be compensated for Josh McDaniels backing out of his agreement. Indy Star Sports app, the best coverage of your favorite Indiana teams, all in one place.